Let us begin the fun of photosynthesis. But before we actually get in there, let's start out with a nice deep breath because this is a very complex process. Now this video is just going to give you a brief introduction to the basics of photosynthesis, not actually the reactions. Reactions are in two other videos. I'm breaking it down even further for you to get started. So to begin with, photosynthesis is all about redox reactions. I know you remember these from chemistry and love them so much. So to review, and this is definitely a review for you, obviously, a redox reaction is the transfer of one or more electrons from one reactant to the other. And there are two types. You can have oxidation and reduction. Remember Leo the lion says grr, oxidation is the loss of an electron and reduction is the gain of electron. Photosynthesis and cell respiration are just a combination of redox reactions and also reactions known as biochemical pathways, which is when the products from one reaction are used as the reactants in the next. So in photosynthesis, you have two main reactions, the light reaction and the Calvin cycle. And so therefore, because it's biochemical pathway, the products from the light reaction are then going to be used as the reactants in the Calvin cycle. So when you go over those, keep that in mind as you're looking at the products from the light reaction. You will then be using them in the Calvin cycle. The first question to ask when beginning photosynthesis is, how do cells get energy? They all get it from sunlight. All begins with sunlight. If you remember back to ecology, everything comes from the sun. The flow of energy starts with the sun. It goes from the sun to the plants, where plants go through photosynthesis and store energy in chemical bonds of sugars, and then in either plants or animals, chemical energy is released as ATP during cellular respiration. So that's a path of the energy flow that we learned about in ecology, and it starts with photosynthesis. So a good place to start would be photosynthesis, but even before that, you kind of need to know about light. As said before, most of the light that plants use comes from the sun down to the earth. We know we enjoy the sun to get heat, energy. We enjoy watching the sun set. We enjoy the rainbows that the sun creates. But why do plants go so tall and grow anywhere that they can to reach this sunlight? What is it about the sun that makes it so important? And really, it is the fact that the sun is made up of light energy and sends light energy towards the planet and towards the earth, and it's a type of energy that the plants can actually capture due to their pigmentation. So how do plants actually get light? And that is through their pigments. They have three main pigments, chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, and your carotenoids. And the pigments are what absorb the light. Chlorophyll A absorbs less blue and more red. Chlorophyll B absorbs more blue and less red, and then the carotenoids try to absorb everything else. The one light wavelength that is not absorbed would be green, and that is what gives the leaves their green color. Now, chlorophyll B and the carotenoids are what's known as accessory pigments. All that they do is absorb light energy and pass that energy to chlorophyll A. They do not actually directly participate in photosynthesis. So when you're looking at the light reaction, you will see that is all about chlorophyll A. That's the party pigment that actually directly helps in the light reaction. So this actually gives you the absorption of light by chlorophyll. Now if you remember, light comes to the earth in photons, so it moves in your wavelengths. Each color has a different wavelength, and chlorophyll absorbs mostly blue, violet, and red light best, and a little of the yellow and orange. So where are these pigments actually found? We're going to go through a little of the anatomy of a plant, and the mesophyll cell of a leaf is where most pigments are found. Pigments can occur throughout the entire plant, but this is where most chloroplasts are found, and because this is where photosynthesis actually occurs. Now within this cell, you have chloroplasts, which are those green circles, and the chloroplast is not just a round, simple thing. It is split up, and it has an inner membrane and an outer membrane, and this fluid inside is known as the stroma, and each little circular thing inside is a thylakoid, and a stack of thylakoids is the granum. Now, my analogy for this is usually a plate of pancakes. So the plate is your chloroplasts, and then you stack pancakes on those. So the pancakes are the thylakoids, and the stacks of pancakes are your granum, and then you put the delicious syrup over, and that's the stroma. So the thylakoids are surrounded by this stroma, this syrup, which is kind of the consistency of actual syrup. Now within the thylakoid and within pancakes, you don't want just plain pancakes, so you usually put blueberries and chocolate chips in, and those are what you actually have in thylakoids, and those could be your pigments. So the thylakoids are actually enclosed circles. That's a special membrane, or it's actually composed of the same things as your cell membrane, just with different things in it that we're going to look at closer. But it is noticed that it is an enclosed circle. It's very, very important to note that. So the thylakoid, as you see, the granum is a stack of thylakoids, has a thylakoid membrane, which is made up of your phospholipid bilayer and your thylakoid space. And again, note that is an enclosed, so that thylakoid space is completely cut off from the stroma, which is surrounding it. So now if you actually look at the thylakoid membrane, this is where your light reaction occurs, and this is an electron transport chain that is going to be super important for your light reaction. So when you look at the animation, which is your next video, which is your animation 3D version of this, and with me explaining what's going on, you now can see and picture the cell, which then has chloroplasts in it, which the chloroplast then has the thylakoid in it, and then the membrane of the thylakoid is where this all takes place. So you have to go from your big picture down into this. So it's very, very, very microscopic, but it is very important for your light reaction. So this just kind of sums up everything, and now what you are actually going to be doing in the next two videos is looking at the parts of the photosynthesis, the light-dependent reaction, and the Calvin cycle. And this is where I'm going to leave you off with this picture to ponder as to looking at how things are moved through and where your reactants, which are water, light, and carbon dioxide, are used, and where your products, your oxygen and sugar, are produced, and what's actually moving in between the light reaction and the Calvin cycle. Goodbye. Have fun.